Welcome once again to the High Performance Human Podcast. Andy here as always. And today I'm taking a bit of a left hand turn and I've reached out or I've been connected to someone that I didn't know a hell of a lot about at first, but within one conversation, and I said this to her just before we hit record on this podcast, I put the phone down and I went, my gosh, this chick is legit in what she is, who she is, what she's about, and what she knows, and why she knows it. Karen Stein is an International Coaching Federation professional, certified coach with over 30 years professional services experience, including 23 years as a partner of Deloitte, which is the world's biggest professional services firm. Am I right in saying that, Karen?
You're quite right. Yes.
Excellent. Good stuff. She provides executive coaching within professional services, corporate and not-for-profit organizations. She has an amazing book coming out that is out now called Be Your Own Leadership Coach. It's won a whole stack of awards. If you're watching this on the old YouTube channel or on my website, you can see it in the background there. But I tell you now, just get ready, team, because she sounds all cool, calm, and collected, but the volume of value that comes through her voice is pretty phenomenal, I have to say. Karen Stein, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the High Performance Human Podcast. How are you?
Well, I'm so grateful and also overwhelmed by that introduction. But I so appreciate you saying everything you did, and I hope I can live up to what you've offered to your audience.
Look, I've got no doubt. So, I mean, team, when I'm doing these I do catch ups with a lot of these guests before we crack on and before we record one of these things, because obviously I want to make sure that we've got a bit of a flow, a bit of a vibe, and that there's going to be some value coming through. With my conversation with Karen, it was the first time we ever spoke, and I have to say there was a couple of things that happened within that conversation that made me so unbelievably confident that Karen, that you're going to be pivotal to a few people that are listening to this in their pursuit of high performance. First one was that she disagreed with some of the stuff that I said, which was fabulous, because I'm sure, team, those that are listening, there'll be a few of you that don't quite agree with some of the stuff that I bang on about. And Karen is one of the first to very politely say, don't know if I agree with that, which I thought was fabulous. I thought that was awesome. That's the only way that we can all grow, right? If we all agreed, we'd never get anywhere. But as well as that, like I said, gang, I mean, 23 years as and a partner of Deloitte down here in Australia. That's no small feat. That is no small feat just to get to that level. So she's clearly done it, got the t-shirt, bought the book, and all the rest of it, right? So this is a human that has absolutely walked the path that a lot of us want to walk. Karen, I know that I've mentioned a bit about you already, but tell everybody that's listening a little bit of a background as to who you are, what you're about, and what got you to this point.
Well, you've been ever so kind. So thank you, Andy. It's a pleasure to be with you today. Some of the things that I guess when I think of who I am that bubble up for me a lot is I'm an executive coach and an author. I'm a mum and a partner to my partner, my life partner. I'm a daughter and a sister and a friend to a lovely close-knit group of people. And in the work that I do, the coaching I do, my hope and intention is very purposeful. I try and support people to be the best that they can be in whatever it is that they're striving for. And so I feel if particularly through self-coaching, so helping people support themselves to enable themselves with self-coaching strategies, if people can be working on themselves to be of their best selves and have the impact they're hopeful of, their well-being improves, it ripples to people around them. So we have more of a positive environment that we're all a part of. And step by step, this allows us all to have an impact on making this world a better and kinder place. So that's really my purpose, is what I'm trying to do in my life, whether it be with my friends, my family, my colleagues, those who I coach with. That's the type of way that I try and look at the world. And by no means am I always that person who's happy and exercising what I coach in, but I try and be sufficiently self-aware to notice when it's not happening and to try and, pull back in those moments to try and self-reflect and understand a little bit more.
I really like that you said that last bit at the end. I was going to ask, before we get on to one of the main questions that we ask in these shows, that being a partner of Deloitte, obviously white collar corporate environment, right?
Yeah.
There is inevitably that impression. Well, I've not seen the inner workings of Deloitte, right? So I can't comment on them directly. But generally speaking, within white collar land, as you make your way up the ladder, there's got to be a little bit of dog eat dog at some stage as you make your way up the ladder. Um, how is that ever been like? Have you ever looked at it and gone, oh, nah, or like because you are you can tell it radiates out of you. You are an inherently positive person, right? Um, but getting to the level that you got to
Mm.
must have some teeth. There must be some bite to go with that bark.
Well, I think it doesn't have to be bite. It's about how you influence people to have a common purpose. And so we're not always going to be directionally headed in the right way. We might actually be, as you were talking earlier about diverse opinions or otherwise, we might be headed in different directions. But it's understanding why we're doing what we're doing and how we can be better together. Now, not everybody's going to think the same way, and there absolutely would have been times in my career where it was good, great, and other times where it wasn't so pretty. But it's about how you respond to it and what you bring of you and what perspective you take in relation to what's happening for you. So, what is it that I have learned from that experience or dealing with that particular individual or that client or that scenario? And what did I contribute to it? Because often we're the first ones to say it was them, it was because of this, it was, I was set up for failure because of, et cetera, et cetera. But often that's not the case. It's often it's a meeting of different circumstances, it's different perspectives, thoughts, knowledge, insights. So I guess a lot of my journey, I became a partner at a very young age. So I was just over 30 when I became a partner. And it wasn't a dream to be a partner for me. It was a set of circumstances that led me to Deloitte. I was wanting to work with a group of people. I ended up joining the firm. They saw what I was capable of. They pulled me into their team, and then things started to happen. And I was someone open to opportunities and thought, let's see what happens. Let's see where this takes me. And I enjoyed the belief that people had in me and the opportunity to try and grow. So I was growing all the time. But I also had a lot of opportunities to try different things, to have coaching and support, to become that coach to others in the business and to try and shape things. So it was kind of, in many instances in my career, was those, it would only happen at Deloitte moments. And it's easy to say that when you're in it. I'm actually retiring as a partner at the end of this month from
Oh,
Deloitte.
wow.
So it'll be 24 years of partnership. The very next day, I become a consultant to Deloitte. So I'm not leaving the whole organization. I'll still be teaming with them 3 days a week, but I'm opening myself up to also doing other things and teaming with other people to try and bring my purpose to life of being able to increase the equity of access to coaching strategies to many, so we can actually have that increase in well-being and help, as I said, that purposeful stance of trying to make the world a better place. So by being able to do work with Deloitte and also more outside of Deloitte, I'm hoping that I'll be able to have a different and perhaps bigger impact in that regard.
You now, team. If you took what Karen just said there at face value, you should have in your notes probably 4, 5, 6 key bits to come out of that. The main overarching thing that you should hear loud and clear is the level of purpose to which Karen works. It's very obvious that you are so clearly defined in your mind and in your gut as to what your purpose is. Your reason for being seems tremendously obvious.
It wasn't always.
And absolutely, and I really want to come on to that in a little bit, because I'm sure there would have been a journey to get to that point, and that's absolutely something that I want to dig into in a little bit. But before we get carried away, Karen, because I can feel myself getting carried away with you, and I say that again entirely positively, we've got to ask the question, right? Now, I have this belief that high performance humans have 4 key pillars to them, being success, connection, influence, and happiness. I'm really intrigued to hear what your definition of a high performance human is.
Sure. So I've been thinking about this because we often talk about high performance teams as opposed to high performance humans. And in reflecting on the individual, I think a high performance person is somebody who's going to be very self aware, aware of their limitations. So, how far can I go with what I've got? Aware of what they need to do more of in terms of behaviors, emotions, and cognition. So, that self reflection and self awareness to realize their impact, but aware of when they also seek help from other people to support them in the absence of them being able to do things. So a high performance person will not be someone who has necessarily all the answers, but someone who's capable of knowing what they do have and what they don't have and where they can get it from in support through other people. Also, who's somebody who exudes kindness and leadership. And that comes to being empathic, having great listening skills, being able to empower teams, help people grow. So it's not all about me, but it's also about we. And that to me would be whatever the opportunity in life is, how do I make this experience something which I'm not just going through alone through my life, whether it's professionally or otherwise? What can I do to have a sense of relatedness with others so that they're with me and we're doing it and having fun and doing it together and we're all growing from it?
That's a slightly different answer to what I've heard in a few interviews so far. I really like, so the first kind of like two parts to your answer there. The first part of that answer, what I really liked about that team, and this is something absolutely for your notes, is that it's not limiting beliefs, absolutely not. It's being aware of one's limitations and actually accepting that you've got some as well. I think,
yeah, but not also thinking that those limitations are necessarily permanent.
Yes, quite right.
So this is where I am now. Where could I be? So it's almost having a love of learning, a curious, open mind as to where could I get to and whose support do I need to allow me to get there. And that's what I mean by the limitations. I might know how to be in service to you and solve this technical problem up to this point, but I can't currently go any further unless I get your support to help me open up this and to explore this together. So that's why I would think that's high performance, because it's the vulnerability to be able to say, this is as far as I go at this moment, and I'm willing to learn. And you'll always be high performance if you're open to learning, if you're curious and interested in hearing other people's perspectives and thoughts. You're always going to be growing and seeing things in a different way. And I think that's so important.
With the second part of your definition there, the one word that came up into my head was abundance. And it was something that I've been playing with the word abundance, in amongst all of this sort of stuff. And what I really love about it is that you're basically saying, having kindness in making it a we versus me sort of take on humanity and whatnot. It goes hand in hand with what I've been saying about abundance, because I don't believe that I just have this thing where there's no point having abundance if you've got no one to share it with.
Yeah.
And what you said there about having a we versus me, we as opposed to me mentality, because we are pack animals, right? Essentially, and that, and we're in our striving for happiness. That's why I think that phrase, if there's no successful hermits, I think that phrase sort of goes hand in hand with that one a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Love it. Love those two elements to your definition there. Now, let's get stuck into the meat and veg of this one, because as I'm sure you can all hear, and I'm sure you are all pretty convinced by now, team, we've just gone through the bloody intro, that Karen is someone that is worth listening to. Now, there was part of the conversation that we had in our pre-podcast catch-up that I wanted to sort of do publicly a little bit, because when we were talking about leadership team, and in her book, Be Your Own Leadership Coach, a lot of it is about internal leadership, and you need to be able to learn to lead yourself so that you can lead others better, and you can do more with yourself and be more and what have you. And we'll dig into that in a little bit. But it got us talking onto the whole nature versus nurture piece, right? So, and team, I just threw the question out at Karen because I was really intrigued, because obviously being an executive coach, there's obviously a belief that she can instill leadership traits and leadership qualities into people, right? And to a degree. And I sort of challenged her a little bit in saying that, is leadership is it a DNA thing, or is it something that can be made? And what was your answer to me when we had that conversation, Karen?
So I lean more so on the nurture, because if we're looking at leadership and some of the traits that come with it, we have our IQ, which pretty much settles by the time we get through our adult development years, early 20s, late teens. We kind of hit the limit of what our IQ is going to be for our life. But our EQ, our emotional quotient, the ability to have empathy and to build our listening skills and to be present, these are skills that we can learn. And so we can nurture those. And leadership is very much about our sense of relatedness with people and making space for others and noticing and being self-aware. We can learn all of these traits. Now, I do recall we were talking about how we could instill confidence in leaders and have courage, being the willingness to act even when there's uncertainty or fear as to an outcome. And you responded to me saying, well, you thought people would be born with more possibility of being more courageous than others. But I still think, even if that's so, to my mind, it would be the lesser that they've just been born with that, therefore they'll become leaders. I think we still need to give them the environment, give them the resources, help them see it for themselves, to enable themselves to draw on that courage to therefore be more confident and be a leader.
Yeah, I think you know what, you're absolutely spot on. So the context of that conversation, gang, was, or where I sort of challenged Karen a little bit was, I felt that when the seas are calm, so, when we're in peacetime or when things are going well, it's essentially, in many respects, easier to be a leader when things are humming along nicely. It's easy to say that you've got a great team when things are running along nicely. But I suggested or imposed that wartime generals are the ones where they have this innate internal sort of subconscious ability to be able to make spontaneous decisions in the face of adversity. And that's where I suggested to Karen that maybe, leaders in wartime or, in troublesome times are the more sort of nature-based leaders. I think, though, and I was thinking about this, I was, because like I said, you put me on my heels a little bit with a number of bits of the conversation. I absolutely agree that I think there are some people that don't have the right environment or the conditions or the guidance to be able to bring the best of themselves out, the best of their leadership qualities out. And I think that the phrase of hard work beats talent when talent doesn't want to work hard is very applicable in this case, because people that work really hard on their craft of leadership or whatever it is that they want to do, they can very much learn to be of that piece. Yeah.
Yep.
And I think when it comes, and I was thinking about my own point that I made to you about wartime, about when things are tough or when things are hard. One thing I will say against myself is the fact that preparation precedes everything. And I think for those that are diligent in their preparation for any outcome, and naturally, they are going to have built themselves an ability to be able to handle whatever the situation may be.
Yeah.
And that's where I think some of the nature-based leaders, the ones that sort of rely too much a little bit on spontaneity, on that think on their feet, sort of fly by the seat of the pants sort of style strategy to life. I think that's where those ones can ultimately become unstuck, or they don't make as much of a bad situation as those would do if they were more prepared.
Yes, preparedness is hugely important as leaders. I mean, the best leaders are those who prepare for even the smallest of conversations, who actually think about what's the outcome I'm hopeful of, or how do I want to make that person feel, or how do I want to influence that person, rather than, and they get faster and faster at being able to equip themselves with, okay, draw on my experience, I've done this before, I'll just, I know what I'm doing. So there's a lot more gut perhaps or instinct that comes into it. But it's come from experience, and it's come from preparedness and consideration of, consequences and unintended consequences, and thinking things through and being thoughtful in how they address different situations. And even in wartime, they're hugely thoughtful in how they're addressing these. Although, the movies portray that it's quick action, they just make a quick decision, sure, but they're trained, as you said, to make those quick decisions when they need to.
Yeah. One thing I was going to ask you about that was because I'd like to, and I'm going to segue us into the internal leadership side of things, because you mentioned in there about being prepared in even the little conversations, right? And you said, what's the desired outcome? What could the outcome be? What are the plans of attack for X, Y, and Z? What about the internal version of that, right? Because one, a huge sort of theme in your book is giving people the tools to be able to lead themselves, right? And I don't know if you caught it properly there, gang, but a part of Karen's real purpose in life is to help to provide more access to coaching, to the tools that coaches use to people, generally speaking, because it can be really expensive to get a coach to help guide you and so on and so forth. So Karen's trying to make that more accessible, the tools and the strategies and whatnot, make them more accessible to more people, to therefore influence more people to a greater scale. Now, talking about internal decision making and whatnot, I think that is obviously something, because I don't know what the statistic, we make however many conscious or subconscious decisions during a day, right? I'm sure you'll have some sort of number on it. Yeah. And a lot of them are instinctive. They are DNA, like do I open my eyes? Do I not open my eyes? And you go, that's sort of simple. But then there are some sort of there are plenty of relatively little or big sliding door moments during a day, right? That either have short-term or long-term consequences. For example, can I be asked lifting weights today? Can I be bothered going for a walk? Should I eat that chocolate bar or should I not? Things like that, right? Let's talk about that for a bit. So what's your experiences around internal decision making, and what have been your observations with the depth of experience that you've had?
Yeah, well, I think because we're so busy, decision making often goes onto autopilot, where we're not being thoughtful or conscious in the decisions we made. Some of them, as you said, you don't need to be, right? The opening of the eyes and so forth. But there's many that we are not being conscious of, and therefore we're allowing ourselves to become overworked, overwhelmed, blur our boundaries of work and outside of work, talk in a way perhaps that isn't regulating my emotions because I'm so fatigued, I'm not really noticing I should take a break or otherwise. So the more that we can actually find space and pause and reflect and assess where am I at, the better the choices will be that I'm capable of making. But if I find myself in back-to-back meetings, without nourishment, without well-being breaks, without opportunities to kind of digest what did I just hear and leave that out of the next meeting without bringing that frustration into this meeting, then my capacity to be focused is dwindling. I'm involved in lots of activity and a lesser amount of productivity. And so I can't be of my best self if I'm not able to support myself in the decisions I'm making. So we're living in a kind of working world where it has become hectically busy. Busy is the new social norm. People kind of badge themselves as to how busy they are. And you ask people how they are, typically they'll say they're busy. And if they're not busy, we help people get busy. Oh, you're not busy? I've got some work you can do. Come on, come over here. I'll give you something. So it's become, I talk about how it's now replaced the kind of physical keeping up with the Joneses to more of the intangible. In the old days, it was, what car you drove and the watch and the phone. And these days it's how busy you are. And there's this perceived social worth that if you're busy, you must be in demand. You must be of value. You must be significant. I want to be like you. Therefore, I want to be busy. But what happens is when we're too busy, then we lose our ability to lead ourselves as our best selves. And the book, to what you were saying, is trying to support people by giving them access to what I call a virtual backpack of strategies, self-coaching strategies. So each day when they leave the house to go to work, they'll grab their phone and their watch, but they'll also put on this virtual backpack and adjust the straps. And as the day goes, they'll pull out a strategy to help them face into a challenge they have. And if that doesn't work, they'll grab another. You feel so much more empowered when you're aware of what you have with you. And so by carrying this virtual backpack full of these strategies, you'll be able to be better in support of you of the decisions you can make. But if we don't stop and find these slithers of time across our working days and build rituals into having shortened meetings with a break, taking a lunch break, stepping away from my desk so I can recalibrate, rethink, attend to my mood, maybe put some music on to lift my spirits. If I'm not attending to things and I'm just on this autopilot of being busy, I'm not allowing myself to show up as my best self and to support myself in the decisions I'm making for me or for others around me.
I really like that. You mentioned there's a few things in there, team. First one, and it kind of goes in the same theme as what we've heard from a couple of people recently, which is having an ability or building a capacity to be able to slow things down a touch. The world's in a rush, and I really like that observation that you've made there, that busy is the new keeping up with the Joneses. You're spot on. Yeah, absolutely spot on with that. And when as soon as you said it, I instantly went back to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, umpteen numbers of situations that I've had where if you're not busy, you almost feel guilty that you're not busy.
Or devalued,
exactly,
lesser worth.
Exactly, all of the above. And it's you're absolutely on the money with that observation. Now, why do you think that is? Like, what can we attribute that to, do you think?
I think it's just been the change in our lifestyles over the years. So technology has allowed information to come at us so much faster. So you're talking about the number of thoughts we might have a day. I can't recall the actual number. I think it was something like 16,000 thoughts a day is what they suggested. I'd suggest we have many more, because if you think of how many of your listeners are on internet, email, Facebook, Instagram, X, they're using their intranet internally. So they might be on Microsoft Teams and receiving notifications. They've got their phone buzzing and they've got messages coming in. They're answering calls. There's so much digital information coming at us, so many more thoughts, and we're pushing back in response as well without even realizing we're doing it. So information flows have sped up considerably, which has blurred the way that we work. We now extend our working locations and environments beyond what used to be. You'd sit in the office, you'd turn on a computer, at the end of the day, you turn it off, and there was no accessibility to information. So by doing that, it's allowed us to create these habits, and the habits have just become ways of working. So our ways of working have changed tremendously over the years, which has meant that we are finding people are integrating work and life more so than looking at how they can best integrate it. And when it gets blurred and you can't see the distinction between work and outside of work, then you're dealing with so much more information. So it's harder to slow down when it still comes at you. So it's really stopping to notice that and thinking, okay, how is this helping me and supporting my well-being? Is it allowing me to re-energize, to recuperate, to bring the best of me, to invest in people outside of work, to invest in my own self so that I have time just for me? Because sometimes people feel bad if I do something for me. How about we lift the priority? If you're not doing something for yourself first, how are you going to support other people if you can't be of your best? And that could be eating well, going for a walk, doing some exercise, getting some sleep, speaking to a friend, going out for a dinner or a coffee or whatever, that relatedness that we need in our lives. But if we're too busy for all of that, then we're pushing ourselves down as that priority and trying to work as though we're up here. And that shows up in what happens, the mismatch of intention and impact.
The mismatch of intention and impact, team. Geez, she's coming out with some zingers. She really, really is, team. Now, with this virtual backpack, would you be able to, or would you be so kind as to perhaps give us one or two of those tools that are in said backpack?
Sure.
Can maybe help with this bit in particular. This whole slowing down of the world,
Mm.
and being able to take stock and then look at increasing the probability of making the right decision.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So if we take the intention and impact
Yes.
and pull that out of the backpack. So if each day when I start my day, I take 10 minutes and I ask myself, what's my intention for the day? I can consider what that intention is. Not my task list. So it's not, I need to lodge this and do this. It's actually how do I want to be? What's the impact I'd like to have? And when I take those 10 minutes, it could be sitting on the bus on the way to work. It could be after I've dropped the kids at school and I'm on my own in the car. It could be as I'm walking, to the train station, 10 minutes. Think about what do I need to bring of myself in terms of my behaviors, my emotions, and my cognitions. And then I can set myself up for success for the day, right? For me to be measured, for me to be present, for me to be inspiring and motivating, how am I going to engage with people? How do I make time? How do I say yes when someone wants to speak to me about solving a problem rather than not really listen? Or how do I take my phone and put it away rather than playing with it when someone's talking to me and demonstrating I'm not with them? So I'm not having that impact. At the end of the day, I want you to take 10 minutes when you're heading home and think, did my intention match my impact? Did I have the impact that I was hopeful of? Yeah, maybe I did. Maybe I was inspiring and motivating and had an impact that was positively long lasting in my absence. But maybe it wasn't. Maybe I got frustrated and cut somebody short. Maybe I spoke over someone. Maybe I wasn't really listening when they were talking to me. Or maybe I didn't put my hand up to do something because I just couldn't be bothered. Wasn't in the mood. So if I can focus on taking 10 minutes at either end of the day and matching it up, intention versus impact, then it gives me license to say, what do I need to do differently tomorrow? And that's when I can think about, well, perhaps this is what's happening is because I don't have enough time. Perhaps I need to start actually adjusting my ways of working. I need to have spaces between meetings for traveling from one meeting room to another. I need to have well-being breaks. I need to delegate so I'm not carrying everything, but actually I'm sharing the load with people, even if they haven't done it before or they don't do it the way I do it. Right? I need to kind of break through those rules of why I don't delegate and start to loosen things so that I can allow people to grow, but I can also then focus on other things that will be good and healthy for my growth. So making some conscious decisions of what I should do more of and what I should do less of, because I've noticed and been mindful about my intention and my impact, is something you could easily every day pull out of your backpack.
I like that. I like that. And I really like that you were very quick to make the distinction between intention and task. I really like that because that can something that can be easily misconstrued. Because everyone has intentions to go make a sale today, or you know what I mean, or be really productive today. Like my intention is I'm going to get these things done. That's not the intention that Karen's explaining to us, team, because our intention is it's a higher level. It's the level that precedes the motivation required for tasks and so on and so forth, right?
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to work, when it comes to that sort of what are my intentions today? Who am I going to be? How am I going to be? And what have you? What are some of the critical mistakes or what are a couple of the critical mistakes that sometimes you observe with either your clients or cohort?
Yeah, sometimes, well, a common one is lack of purpose, lack of understanding. Why do I want to do what I do? I might know how I do it, and I might know what I need to do, but if I'm not connected with it because I don't know why I do it, I won't have that discretionary effort to push a little harder or maybe try a bit harder. I won't feel connected with it, so I'll just do it, and maybe I won't notice that I made some mistakes because it doesn't really bother me. I won't necessarily be in service to the people that I'm doing it for because I don't understand the reason of why I'm significant in doing what I do. So coming very much back to why I do what I do, understanding why I matter, why I'm of worth and significance, how I'm of value and how I add value, that helps me understand my purpose. And so you can ask yourself, what's the world problem that I need to solve today, and why am I significant in solving it? So for me, if I'd think of myself, the problem I want to solve is trying to reduce the inequity of access to coaching resources so that people can enable themselves to be their best self and have a positive impact on themselves and those around them. That's the problem I'm trying to solve. Why am I significant in solving that? my 30 plus years of professional services leadership career, my masters of coaching my masters of science in coaching psychology, my book writing, my other experiential aids will support me to be significant, as well as being high in empathy and really caring about this space to try and help people in their journey to solve that problem. So people can come down to trying to understand, why am I here? Why am I actually doing it? And what is the purpose of what I'm doing? And I go through some exercises in the book. The book actually has a lot of self-reflective exercises where you can stop and focus on some particular topics, do some exercises and sit with that for a while to help aid yourself. And then I can start thinking about, what are my values as well? How do I honor my values in what I'm doing? And it could be values of integrity and fairness and kindness and whatever it might be, a whole range of different values. So then how am I honoring those in the work I do? And if perhaps the way I allocate resources to projects or the way I delegate isn't kind, because I kind of drip feed people information. So they start on something and then I think, oh yeah, you should know about this as well. I forgot to tell you. Oh, here's something else you might want to know. I'll tell you a week later. I've wasted their time. They haven't had full information. So they've had to re-script or rethink or redo. That's not kindness in leadership. The kinder approach is to say, if I was standing in their shoes, what would support them? How can they be of their best? What do I need to do in the way I delegate? So you can actually consider, how am I bringing that and how am I honoring the values in the way I work? And then I can think about my strengths. What are the things that I do that energize me? And when I'm most energized, I'm most engaged, my performance is better, I'm optimistic and hopeful, I'm enjoying and having fun in what I do. I get into a state of flow. If I haven't even thought about that, how am I going to bring those elements of myself together? And often when people step into a coaching space and you start breaking this down with them and they realize, oh, okay, my strength is actually of communication, but I just hadn't been bothered to talk about it. Maybe I can think about how I could shape this conversation to bring this to their attention. Or maybe I've been quite resilient in the past. I can be a bit kinder to myself and not bash myself up so much about this particular issue. So that strength might support me with this particular problem. When we break it down to leading as you with strengths, purpose, and values, it makes it a lot easier to then step forward to do all the other things you need to do.
A lot of that really boils down to owning who you are, right? Which it goes in line with what you classify as a high performance human, like understanding where your vulnerabilities are, but also understanding what you bring to the table as well. And look, I think everything that you just said there is such good value and so worthwhile people just rewinding and just replaying that bit there. There will be a number of people that are listening to this, and I can hear them saying, it's another person telling me to get up and do my intentions and be all like, yeah, we're going to do this, and be all happy, clappy and all that sort of stuff at the start of every day. No.
I'm not asking you to be happy every day. I'm asking you to be real to who you are. There will be days where we go, as humans, we'll go through the sway of emotions. There'll be different reasons why our emotions are up and our emotions are down. But if I don't take notice of them, what I'm asking everyone to do is to be more mindful and notice more of yourself. If I can notice that I'm feeling a bit flat and unsettled or sad, then I can at least make a choice as to how I respond to that. But if I don't notice it and I just let it be, that's a very different situation. But sometimes it's appropriate that we're going to feel a bit flat or demotivated or otherwise, but then I can attend to it. I can make a decision, make a choice, actively make a choice as to how do I want to invest in me to take myself to a place which is more pleasurable, more interesting, more exciting, more entertaining. But acknowledge at times I will need to sit in a sadder emotion because it's appropriate for whatever's happening in my life or around me. I can also find out who can support me at that point. Maybe I need to step away from some work I'm doing. Maybe I need to just have some quiet time. Maybe I need to work from home because I'm not feeling that I can connect well with people this week. And how can I rearrange myself to do that and still have a positive impact on others? So yeah, it's not the happy smiley stamp, put the sticker on your shirt and tell the world that this is who I am. It's really, who am I and how do I support myself to be my best or better self in that moment? That's my intention. What's the impact I can have the positive impact I can have towards others, even if today's not my brightest day.
I really like that, and I'm glad that you pulled me up on it, because that is, and I'm sure you would have heard this yourself, right? A lot of the automatic defaults are, yeah, but I live in the real world, and I do this, and
Yeah.
I do that, and I do the other, and I've got kids, and I'm blah 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 blah, and all the sort of stuff, all of the natural hurdles that throw up into people's minds, right?
Yeah.
But I really like that. That's okay. Like, intention is based on the ingredients that you've got on any given day, in any given moment, and
Yeah.
how can you make the most of those ingredients to move yourself and those around you forward.
Yes. Yes.
I really like that.
And it's not asking people to be perfect. There is no
Yeah.
such thing as being perfect. What is perfect?
Well, I don't know, man. I mean, you only need to scroll down your bloody IG feed to apparently see what perfection is. But
I don't see it.
yeah,
I don't believe it exists, because there'll always be another subjective view as to how it could have been different or better or constructed in a different way. So I think if we take ourselves away from thinking I need to be perfect before I can ask for that opportunity, or perfect to lead in that capacity, that's really holding us back. But if I allow myself to bring the best of me, warts and all, and with support, if some of those bits are a little bit ugly and need some support to kind of reduce the negative impact that comes with that, if I'm self-aware as that high-performing person, I can seek help. I can seek from my personal board of directors, a coach, a mentor. I can get an advocate. I can get a reverse reciprocal mentor, someone who's sitting in the business who was open to giving me upward feedback. I can ask trusted colleagues and friends to help me with blind spots. So it's what I'm choosing to do to enable myself to have the positive impact I hope to have. And I don't think in life people wake up and think, today I want to have a negative impact. Like, it does happen, but I think typically in the business world, people thinking, how can I have an impact which I'm proud of, which I feel good about, which is reflective of who I really am? And hopefully that's in a positive frame.
yeah. And I mean, sometimes, gang, if you're really feeling up against it, the thought process around that would be, look, I'm don't feel like I'm going to take on the world today, but
Yeah.
how can I make it through to the end of the day in a way that will either preserve or provide even yourself with a degree of value, or a little bit of a glimmer of hope, so to speak, if it's really up against it, right? Because it doesn't matter how big or small that impact may be. That impact might be a recovery from a position of adversity. The recovery, it could be when all you think that all is gone and all is lost, that little sort of little crack of light that comes through at the end of the day, where you can take a breath and go, okay, all may not be as bad as one thinks. It works at any part of that scale, team. It really, really does.
And that's the key word for me, is the scale. So the scale is helping you identify where am I on the scale. You might give it some numbers, 1 to 10. Where am I at now? Where would I like to be? What's the gap? And rather than thinking I have to jump from here to here, how about I just move forward a little bit today and work my way slowly. How do I draw on the things that have helped me get to where I am today to step forward a little bit? So I'm with you. I very much believe in just those incremental small changes can make a huge difference. But that requires self-awareness as well. So even the smallest of changes requires us to recognize that I don't have to conquer the world today. I can just sit quietly and focus on just advancing on this, and I'll be happy if I get to that. And that will be my capacity to act today. But that's okay. For these reasons, that's all I'm capable of today. And that in itself is still role modeling that I'm being in support of myself. And I'm trying to do the best I can do given the circumstances or the environment or otherwise. Now, if it's a work environment that's causing you to be in this state on a continuum and you can't change the system you're in, well, then there's another conversation to have as well. Is this the right place for me? Am I making the right choices? Am I feeling fulfilled? Is this supporting my well-being? Do I need to look elsewhere? And sometimes people can be slow in making those choices or having those conversations with themselves. So I'd recommend we have, to my mind, one life to live. I hope that people have a positive life. So if you're experiencing on a, a longer or midterm basis an experience where you think, I just can't change this system. I can't change what's happening within it and all the interconnections. I would start asking some questions of yourself. Is there something I need to do differently for me? How am I contributing to this? And if I can't see that I can make any changes towards my behaviors, emotions, cognitions, what's the system doing? And do I feel I can influence it or otherwise?
Now, that segues into the last little bit of the conversation before I let you go and spread your positive impact on other elements of the world, which I'm sure you will do. What you mentioned there about you've never seen perfect, and you don't need to be perfect in order to have a level of influence in a positive, in a constructive way. There's a lot of people though that are in those positions where they feel they have something of value to say.
Mm-hmm.
However, through their own belief or their own perspective on their standing within, whether it is an industry, whether it is a workspace, whether it is within a family, they don't feel that they are allowed to, or they don't feel they have the persona or the gravitas in order to express said influential opinion or what have you. Like I said, team, this book that you definitely need to get yourself around. It's won a stack of awards around the world, I think, hasn't it? It's won a few awards.
It has won awards, yes.
Which is pretty awesome. So there's obviously got to be some credibility to it, right? Now,
I hope so.
I reckon it must. Yeah, if the author's anything to go by. Now, how do we get that leadership of ourselves to a point where we can own that opinion, that value that we believe that we have, and then be able to step out from our own internal shadow, so to speak, and put it out there? Can you give us a bit of advice as to how we can improve our chances of that happening?
Well, you made some I was listening to the words that you used. I'm always I find vocabulary fascinating from a coaching perspective, because the words we choose is very helpful in us understanding what people are thinking. And you use the word how they feel. So they feel that they can't. They feel that they don't have the gravitas or otherwise. So the feeling is really important. And often the feelings come from what we tell ourselves, the stories that we tell ourselves. So I would suggest that people, again, come back and notice, what are you feeling? If you're feeling a level of anxiety or worry or fear or vulnerability, is noticing that feeling, and then understand what thoughts have supported that feeling. So what's the story I'm telling myself? And when I notice the story I'm telling myself, maybe I'm not good enough, nobody's interested, I won't sound good, I haven't been here long enough, I'm not the most senior person in the room. These are self-limiting thoughts. And have a think about how those self-limiting thoughts are actually advancing you to support you to be of your best. In most cases, those self-limiting thoughts are actually pulling you back. They're prohibiting you or putting a boundary or an obstacle in your way from being your best self. Yeah, if I can continue to tell myself I can't do something, then I won't. I will. What I think will become my truth. And so what I want to think about is recognize the feeling, notice the thoughts that I'm having, and ask myself, is that thought helping or hindering me? Now, in most cases, if I start to recognize it's hindering me, I can try and replace it with something that might help me. So if I do have a point of view and I want to share it in a room, if I don't have the courage, the willingness to act, even though there's uncertainty or fear, if I don't yet have the courage, what can I do to try and build the courage? So maybe if I know I'm going into a meeting and I really am keen to share my point of view, maybe in advance of the meeting, I could talk to a few people outside to share it and say, hey, I'm really interested in tabling this. I'd love to know what you think of it. And that can help to build my confidence and my courage. Once I know I've got a few people on board, I could step into the meeting knowing I've already tested my idea with a few people. It's got legs. People thought it was pretty good. I'll give it a go. So finding either some advocates or people who can be in support, your cheerleaders, who might actually also, if you said to them, hey, could you help me? I want to bring this up. I've haven't had a chance to bring it up in a meeting before. I'd love it if you supported me. That can support yourself. That's what I said earlier, those high-performing people, if they can recognize what are my limitations at this point and who do I need to help me move beyond them. It's the same with this feeling and the self-limiting thinking. So just I think the first thing is noticing, naming what's the thought, replacing it, and then choosing an action that's going to help you to change it from hindering to helping to have that positive impact.
What a wonderful way to bring this full circle, because you've really tied it in with your definition wonderfully well, and that whole limitation slash limiting belief slash feeling, the crux of it, is to and how that feeling is influencing the way in which we are moving forward with our lives and the actions that we're taking and the decisions that we're making, the choices that we're making with the 16,000 that we have to make over the course of a day. It really does make a heck of a lot of sense that the awareness piece of understanding how you feel in that very moment is pretty critical towards being able to understand who you are and why you are really, and why you are in the space that you're in, whether it's mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, whatever it is. I really like that.
That's also, you can arm yourself with a few tools, a few strategies for your backpack. If you kept a list of your strengths and took a photo of it and kept it in a little folder on your phone called Me, when I'm feeling that sense of doubt, I can just go to my folder and open it up and go, oh, hold on. These are the strengths that I could grab that have supported me in the past to be at my best, to feel energized. I'm lacking some confidence, but when I do this, it makes me more confident. So I might draw on that. Or even keeping some mantras that you could use to try and help yourself replace the negative thinking with some positive self-talk. I add value. I'm good at my job. I'm an industry expert. People love what I say. Like, it could be some really simple things that you can add. I matter. I matter in what I do. Drawing on those mantras to try and replace those thoughts. But in the moment, if you don't have the tools to access it and you can't pull them out of your backpack, then it's kind of like, oh, I'm floundering a bit. But if I've got my backpack on it and I know where I've got the different strategies that can be in support, it'll make life a lot easier.
It's all about increasing your probability of actually getting some of this crap right. You know what I mean? Like, realistically, that's essentially what it is, gang. And I think with a lot of leaders, because as we've pointed out, there's no one with 100% success rate. Like, there is no such thing. There is no leader. There is not one leader on this planet that hasn't made a mistake or 2,500, right? So, so these little strategies and whatnot, none of them are going to be the magic pill. But if you have enough of them around you, which is why you need to get this bloody book, I swear you do, then that way you're going to at least give yourself a better chance of getting it right, or getting it more correct than the alternative. So what a wonderful way to round this thing up. I mean, before I ask you the last question though, what are your strengths?
Oh, okay. So my strengths would be empathy. So I'm very high in empathy and trying to understand people's needs, communication skills, and well, I'd like to talk. And I'd say my strength's also creativity. So I like to be creative from an intellectual sense. So I'm not an artist by any means, but it's more about problem solving or trying to understand concepts and being creative in the way I approach them, or creative in the way that I look at offerings and services to try and support people in different ways. So I guess even my book is a strength of creativity, of how could I look at coaching in a different way to try and support people. I'd say they're three.
Then you know what, team? She said them in a way, well, it made me feel this way anyway, because whenever you ask people for their strengths, it's like job interviews, right? Whenever you ask people what their strengths are, and you can just tell it's some rehearsed nonsense. And unfortunately, because of the way that we're sort of drilled through interview processes and things like that, that kind of ends up bleeding into our real lives a little bit, right?
Yeah.
We think that the best version of ourselves is some rehearsed, got it out of some sales manual nonsense. But I'm sure you felt the same as me when Karen just went through her strengths there. It was undoubted, it was absolutely undoubted that they are her strengths. She knows there are strengths. She's proved it time and time again to herself and other people. Her kids may consider the communication bit is not so much of a strength, but
No, I
sure they
agree. I over communicate, I'm told.
but I'm sure they valued it all the same. And just get that feeling, just register that feeling, gang, as you're writing down your notes. That is a level of confidence that is it's so far away from arrogance because there is an absolute truth to it. And I think that is part of the special sauce. That's part of this. That's some of the special sauce that a lot of us tend to look for, but few of us tend to feel or experience. And Karen's just giving you a bit of a demo on how it can come out when you get it right. So, Karen, you've lived up to the billing. I have to say, you've absolutely lived up to the billing. One last question that we always wrap up with, though, right? And it's something that I've found has humanized all of my guests. It's brought everybody down to the same level. And I want to ask you, and I'm interested to hear how you roll with this. What is the one thing missing from your current form? Now, you're just about to transition from a partnership to a new chapter in your life.
Yes.
As you're looking forth, what do you think is the one thing that's missing from your game at the minute?
Well, I talked about creativity, and I think what's missing from my game is time management around that. So there's so many things that I'd like to do to enable so many different ideas in service to others, but it's then trying to craft the right amount of time. How am I going to spend the right amount of time and not overcommit so that my balance with work and life is kind of out of order, or understate what it is. So part of it is learning how much time I'm going to need for different initiatives, but it's also finding the time that I want to do the creative stuff, to do things in different ways, to be in support of people and allow my ideas to be playful, but also to be pragmatic. So yeah, I'd say that that's probably, it's going to test me in the next few months, but I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a fun opportunity to do that.
And I'm sure your backpack of stuff that you have got, your backpack of ideas would be over brimming with with value for the world, I'm sure. Team, you're mad if you don't try and at least start following this individual or you connect with her even better. You need to make sure that you get this book. The link to the book's website will be in the show notes. Make it your next move to give a click and go and have a download or go and buy it and give it a read, because these little tools, man, like, they ain't going to change your world, but if you've got them with you, they might help you to change one decision that puts you on a much better path. And that in itself is worth the cost of the book. Of that, there is no doubt. Karen Stein, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Like, I've really enjoyed it.
No, I've enjoyed it too. Thanks, Andy. It's been great.
I sincerely hope that this isn't the last that the old HPH community hears from you. I'd love to have you back on once you're up and running with the new ventures and whatnot, and we can share some of those.
No, for sure. I'd love to come back again. So thanks for the opportunity.
All right then, team. I'm sure you'll have had pages of notes out of that. Like, I can't believe it's almost casual how much value came out of this young lady's mouth. It's like insane, like really, really cool. Make sure you listen to it again. Make sure if you do have any questions about any of this or anything that you hear from any of the shows, or if you want to give us some feedback, make sure you connect with me on Instagram at Andy Reid Coaching, or send us an email at Andy at andyreid.com.au. And until next time, team, make sure that you stay safe, healthy, happy. Buy this book, be your own leadership coach, and get some of these tools into your virtual backpack ASAP. Until next time, team, look after yourselves and each other, and we'll speak to you again real soon.